And we're going to be looking at the issues in academics now. Uh, Beyond, what else is popping with in the country aside the fuel price hike. Again, education, NASU, SANU are currently on strike, and Nigerian students are lamenting the effects of the ongoing strike by members of these unions. All right, so we're going over that with our analyst, who is Israel Agbeja, education administrator, a counselor and teacher. All right, he's already on standby on the line right now. But like I said, Nigerian students are currently complaining. They're feeling the heat of the strike. Members of the union commenced on the strike on an indefinite nationwide strike on Monday with campuses of public universities. Within campuses, I beg your pardon, of public universities to demand the immediate release of their 4 month withheld salaries. And the unions are blaming the finance ministry for the ongoing strike that has disrupted the resumption of academic activities on campuses. The federal government, under President Muhammadu Buhari's administration, had withheld the salaries of university staff who participated in an 8 month strike in 2022. Fast forward to 2023 in October, President Tinubu approved the release of 4 months of the withheld salaries of public university teaching staff. Somewhere along the line, the non-teaching staff unions, including SANU and NASU, feeling left out, accused the government of unfair treatment and discrimination. So here we are. The unions have since been at loggerheads with the federal government, initiating talks with the education and labor ministries. And so far, we're at the point where they are currently on strike and saying there's no going back until 4 months' salaries are paid. All right, good morning once again, Israel. I'm not sure why I'm getting the whole back. Is your radio on, Israel?
No, my radio is not on. I'm shocked that the network is not quite. I was thinking it was from your end.
Okay.
I guess it's just a general network issue.
All right, then. Now let's talk about the strike and, of course, analyze Nigeria's education sector. Now, where do we start from? Let's start from how you think the SANU strike is affecting the education sector.
Oh, thank you very much. Thanks for having me on the show.
You're welcome.
I would say that it's a common knowledge that strike by members of NASU and SANU will definitely affect the operations of universities throughout Nigeria, where the unions are represented. Things like being of assistance to students in the faculties and departments, processing of results, and some senior administrative responsibilities too at this time is shut down. So I was in the university yesterday, and I was in a university in Nigeria yesterday where the members of these associations are well represented, and it's as if apart from maybe teaching, other activities, library services were shut down, several other activities that's really needful for operations of the university have been shut down. So
Wow.
it's as if the university currently is standing on a single leg. The universities where these associations are represented, are standing on a single leg.
That's
Things are
serious.
just not working. I
Okay,
think that's a
then.
common knowledge.
So now I think that already talks about the consequences for students and universities, then, that activities are grounded, right? Because I was going to ask you the
Okay.
potential consequences of this strike if it lingers now, because the unions are saying
I,
no
I,
going
I'm
back.
not. I'm not sure I heard you correctly. Could you please recap?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Okay, I think it's better now.
All right. So I said the unions are saying no going back. They're blaming the finance ministry. And, we don't know if the strike is going to be called off soon. So I was asking about the potential consequences for students and universities. You said you were at a university yesterday and you didn't see much happening.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I,
So what?
I was at university. I was at a university yesterday, and not much was happening. I'll be there again today. I know that not much is going to happen.
Mm,
On the students, for example, students who would want to use the library. I personally wanted to use the library yesterday, and it was under lock and key.
mm,
And we use library now not just for reading. There's some researches that need to take place. Postgraduate students will need to, by the order of the university, There's something we call plagiarism check that is
Mm-hmm.
done only in the libraries. And, things like that will be put on hold for now. Students will not be able to progress, with their study or research or whatever it is that they need to do at this time. For them, it's at a standstill. And then for the university too, lots of things we need to be dragged along. Back in the days, NASU members used to, play serious role. Yet, they can't do all these things by themselves. So at the departmental level, at faculty, at the university as a whole, and even students too at this time, will not be able to get the full services that should be served to the university by this. So because of that, by the members of this union. So because of that, things will drag, and things will not move at the pace that they ought to move. Students are delayed. Services also are delayed.
So what are some of the consequences if this continues now?
I'm not sure I heard that. The network was a little...
All right. So I asked about some of the consequences, potential consequences if this continues.
Oh my God.
Okay. So I'm asking about the consequences. Can you hear me now?
No.
Okay. So I said, what are some of the potential consequences if the strike continues? I mean, for the education sector.
Okay. It has been an ongoing thing, and it will keep on going. The faith in the university system in Nigeria has been dwindling over the decades, I would say, and it will continue to get worse. There was a time, until universities like Covenant and Babcock and so came into full operations. There was a time that Nigerians were sending the children and wards to Ghanaian universities, and I know that it hasn't stopped. Many Nigerians are going to universities abroad. The simple reason is that they're losing faith in the university system in Nigeria. The quality of education is dwindling. Then there's something we call brain drain. Yes, everybody, maybe that would be too much of a generalization. I would say that many people in the system just garner some experience and then they look for somewhere else to use that experience. So brain drain, many people will leave Nigeria for this reason. I mean, it has been what has been happening over the years. So they just work in the system a little, when there are hitches like this, everybody's looking for, I mean, not everybody, but maybe many people are looking for ways out of the country. And then summarily, I'll say that faith is being lost in the educational system. Quality of education that students are receiving, keeps getting lesser and lesser, day by day. That's just a few of the consequences of the strike action.
All right. So how effective are these academic unions? That's including ASU and the non-academic staff unions.
Oh, you're asking how effective they are?
Yes. How effective have they been over time?
Okay, I would say that over time, I would say that the hold that they have on the government seems to be breaking. I mean, seems to be dwindling over the years. In the 90s, I remember that Association of Primary School Teachers at that time could hold state governments to ransom. They can't do that anymore. Secondary School Teachers Association at the time too could do that. They can't do that anymore. And gradually, too, I think that academic staff union of universities are also losing the grip that they once had on the Nigerian populace and on the government. And I think this is my own perspective that one of the reasons we now have various unions, we now have I think the one is called Convoy or something like that, a breakaway faction, faction of the ASU, is also a political game by the government, basically to reduce the hold and the grip that this association particularly has on the government. And then for NASU and SANU, well, we know that why they may not be academic staff members per se, why they may not be academic staff members, we know they are integral to the proper running of universities. So they are very important, and universities cannot run without them.
All right. So you mentioned that the unions are losing grounds even with Nigerians. Why do you think this is the case?
Oh, well, diversity of opinions, and I would say that media feeds. I've been in some debates where people believe that university lecturers are asking for too much. They're not really investing themselves into the system that they are claiming to be fighting for. They have other engagements in private schools and all of that, and they're not really invested in the system they are fighting for. And therefore, some Nigerians believe that they are not honest even in their demands too, that everybody is just about his or her own pockets. And then many Nigerians too simply have this, well, I don't care. I can afford to send my children to private universities. I can afford to send them overseas. And now that there are a number of options, lesser people, are really on the neck of NASU. Lesser people can be held, to ransom, and even the government too, being a representative of the people, it's the government can be held to ransom, not with as much grip as the government could be held to ransom some few decades ago. Basically because now there are options for parents, and many people also think that all the staff unions are not honest. They are not indeed fighting for the system.
Okay.
They are actually fighting for their own pockets. And then there are people too who believe that the government, like me, I believe that the government is not funding education enough. So because of this diversity of opinion, it's really difficult to find a huge number of Nigerians, lining behind and throwing their weight behind these unions.
Okay, so I was going to ask you what you think yourself anyway. But now, how does the ongoing strike, reflect broader issues in Nigeria's education sector and governance? At the intro, I talked about the non-teaching staff unions are feeling left out. Or rather, they were left out at some point, and they are accusing the government of unfair treatment and discrimination. That is, at the last administration, some teaching staff were paid their old salaries. They were on strike for about 8 months in 2022, and then President Tinubu paid about 4 months from the salaries last year. So now the non-teaching staffs are feeling left out of it. And now with this whole situation going on and reasons behind the strike, how would you say this reflects broader issues in Nigeria's education sector and governance?
Okay, I would say that this is not a new thing. It happens almost in every union, every institution where different unions have to work together to achieve the goals of the institution. Let's take the health sector, for example. There is JOHESU, I think, joint union of health practitioners apart from doctors, nurses and some other health practitioners. At the time, also felt that they were also not being treated with equity. Maybe nobody was asking for equality. They were not being treated with equity, in terms of how the government was at the time treating the doctors. So the same thing is happening in the education system. Yes, not just staff members, particularly in NASU, because in a sense they are the lower cadre staff members of the universities. So they also accuse the government of not treating them fairly, and it's simply because it is believed that when you are lower on the ladder, you can be discharged, you can be dispelled, beaten off of sense of equity in the Nigerian system. That is the problem that we are having in the Nigerian system. Simply because an academic officer, a lecturer, for example, will need to teach. But then a non-teaching staff member, the thought is that they can easily be replaced. So thinking that they can easily be replaced has made academic staff members relatively indispensable. Some professors were sacked in Uniben. In Uniben, some professors were sacked in Uniben. So academic staff members appear to render to the students or to the university system. However, NASU members, you hear them say, what do? They just carry files and do this and that. So the thought that they are not, their services are not indispensable in the sense that you can easily get somebody today, train the person in a couple of weeks, or maybe one or fair treatment method to them, really obvious in the education sector. So it all boils down to inequity.
Okay. All right, this is Spotlight on Super FM. If you're listening right now, be a part of the conversation. Send in your contribution 0805 092 0927. That's 0805 092 0927. Or call 0705 890 4927. You can send a WhatsApp message to 0705 690 0927. Among some of the issues we have to grapple with at the moment is the academic union strike. So be a part of the conversation. Now, back to you, Mr. Israel. What reforms do you think are necessary to address the underlying causes of the strike?
Oh, wow. In my perspective, still there is need for an overhaul of the system. By overhaul, you mean a shift, a paradigm shift in the system, the way we see people, the way the government sees its workers. Is the one problem that has been happening in the private sector over the years, I think, is creeping into the public sector too. The fact that there is serious unemployment in Nigeria, and if a staff member leaves, such a person can be easily replaced in a matter of minutes or maybe days. It's creeping into the government, into the public sector too. They thought that lots of people are unemployed in Nigeria, and if you leave your job, 5 people are out there, ready to take that job. It has crept into the system already. So if there's going to be, if the government, sincerely, let me not say the government, if the people of Nigeria would want to find solutions to this, there is need for the big players in the system, the stakeholders in the system, the government, the ordinary citizens of Nigeria, the academia, representative of the academia, students, we need to sit down and address these matters from the very root. I talked about the issue of prevalence of unemployment, exactly. In fact, even the perspectives with which people are seeing. I mean, the lack of equity in the system. This is a broader societal issue. This is not just in the academics. The fact that if you are not in a certain class, you are treated less. You are not given as much. You are not accorded as much respect. Like if you are from a higher class. Something happened recently between a boat driver and another member of the House of Representatives in Abuja recently. I was asking myself that if that guy had been, maybe if he had been Shenkuti, or if he had been Davido, or if he had been somebody else, the honorable member would definitely not have treated him like that. This idea of segregation, societal, I wouldn't, there's no caste system anymore. But then the fact that society is segregated among, classes and all of that, these are issues that that cannot be, dealt with in a matter of days or weeks. This is a systemic issue that we need to go into our civic education curriculum right from primary and secondary school, and the National Orientation of Nigeria will need to do a whole lot of job to address this matter. So I think we are a long way from sincerely giving true answers or giving true solutions to this.
All right,
Anyway.
Okay, well, we can't say for sure. Of course, we're going to talk about some of the policies that were, introduced by the now sacked minister. But before we go on to that, you talked about segregation. Now, that plays out in tertiary institutions. We see what's going on with universities and polytechnics and maybe a college of education. Now, what do you have to say about that? There's been talks about that as well, that, HND holders are discriminated and treated unfairly, even in, during a service year when they go to camps and all that. So would you want to comment on that?
Oh, yes, definitely. I think the problem we've always had in Nigeria, let me not say we've always had because I've not always been around. The problem that we've had in Nigeria for a long time is prioritizing certificates, beyond beyond the competencies of the person. I've interacted with a lot of people. I've met people who got from universities, from polytechnics and colleges of education, and I've seen that apart from what the school added to you, what have you added to yourself? How have you actually improved yourself? In essence, I'm saying that I've seen graduates of polytechnics who I would say better off than some graduates of universities. So I would say that the problem is that we are too fixated on the certificates that someone is carrying and ignoring their competencies. So I would say that it still boils down to inequity in the system. The fact that people going to college of education are seen as, in fact, to be honest with you, at the time, I also had a perspective. When I finished from secondary school, like, oh, you could go to social school while seeking admission in university. I don't want to mention, I don't want to say on here now. That's because the orientation I had back then in secondary school. So like I was saying, this to take an overhaul. This to take orientation right from secondary school, making us realize that people are different. Does not mean that someone is superior. Universities, even from polytechnic, and polytechnics are different from colleges of education. We must be able to realize the importance of understanding this diversity, these differences, and not having to put their different habitats and then they function differently. So until these are seen for what they are and what product it should be, of putting them on the same pedestal and trying to compare them will remain.
Okay. Now, before we move on to basic and secondary schools now, education, that is in Nigeria, I'll still ask you about polytechnics. Do you think it has lost its essence? Because, studying accounting in polytechnics is not, I don't think that's the vision, that's the aim. Polytechnics deal more with the practical side of it, and as opposed to the theory. But I stand corrected, you are the educationist. Do you think the polytechnics in the country, have lost its essence?
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. I may not be able to speak so much to that. I don't want to be given a non-standard information. I've not interacted too much with polytechnics. I've done a lot with College of Education and universities, but I've not interacted so much with polytechnics. But the question as to if polytechnics have actually lost, if the polytechnic in Nigeria has lost its essence, I would say that to a very high degree. As an educationist, I would say I partially agree with that because the essence of going to polytechnic, the essence of creating polytechnics is or was to ensure that some particular professions, some vocational and technical, professions are given expression. For example, talk of professions like engineering, all forms of engineering, talk civil, talk electronics, electrical, all forms of engineering, all areas of engineering are given, students who wanted to study such courses are given adequate training, So I would say that in that sense, the essence of creating polytechnics, we might actually be losing out on it in Nigeria. Like I said, I've interacted with a number of graduates from these polytechnics, and not many of those who are even studying practical courses can boast of exposure to practical knowledge while in the school. Not many of them. The polytechnics have tried to, find a soft landing for themselves. There's something we call SciWest now, IT, and all of that. But right inside the polytechnic, some of them go for IT. And IT is meant to expose you to further practicals. But then they get there and they find out that these students do not have any knowledge of these practicals at all. And whoever is handing them on the IT has to begin right from the start. So in that sense, I'll partially agree that the polytechnic in Nigeria may just be losing its essence.
Okay. So you said you dealt more with colleges of education. So how is that faring with the colleges of education?
Colleges of education in Nigeria are not faring well at all. Talk of private, talk of public colleges of education, they're not faring well at all. And I think it's the public perception of teachers. Teachers are underpaid. Teachers are not seen as very important people in the society. Just as seen as people that can be easily dispelled of people that okay, so anybody can teach. That's the idea. Anybody can teach, and then how much are teachers earning? What can teachers afford? And because of that, many people do not want to go and invest 3 years of their lives, in a college of education, when they can actually do 4 years, studying education in a university. And many people too feel like, oh, it's a waste of time. Why should I even go into education at all when after graduating I'll be receiving peanuts as salary and all of that? Now, I said they are not doing well. When you look at the enrollment, many private colleges of education today are surviving, because they throw out scholarship to their students. They throw out scholarships. So they're paying very low amount of money, and this is what makes them to get students. And some of these students are people who may not even be able to go to a high institution at all, maybe because of financial challenge or because of poor academic ability. And that's a sad thing too. When you bring people into the system to become teachers who themselves have very little knowledge of what they were taught in school, you end up producing teachers who are non-standard, and then that